Welcome back to the Phoenix channel. Round 2 here, getting you with the 2-4. Hope everybody's having a great day, enjoying your day. If you like this content, hit the like button. Consider subscribing to this channel. So we start talking about Profi and the potential to unlock value in both the Bitcoin community, overall the crypto space, as well as potentially the EOS mainnet if it's leveraged. This video is going to be a little different in the sense of expanding the concept of programmable finance, which goes well beyond the utility of an exchange or custodianship and the furnishment of, for example, interest rate paid for a deposit, which is something that, from a traditional banking perspective, we no longer have. So many years ago, if you go back potentially 2 decades ago, for example, you could find examples of interest rates that were paid out for deposits of money in the order of a couple percent to maybe as high as 5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but there is major consequences, right, with the lowering of that interest rate. Mainly, a retiree who was maybe aiming to have $1 million in their portfolio, in their retirement portfolio, if they maybe wanted some decent quality of life, they could maybe utilize some of these deposit interest rate payments, somewhere around 5 or 6%, to supplement some of their lifestyle. And now to garner that same lifestyle, it's requiring those same individuals to take on much more in terms of their retirement. So to translate it to numbers, if you guys do the math, if a person had $1 million, for example, back in the beginning of 2000, and they were able and lucky enough to have an interest rate payout of 5%, if you do the math, that translates to a yearly payment of $50,000 per year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but again, in most countries or most places, you can live pretty well as a homie or even an upgraded homie, right? Now that amount is down somewhere below 1%, so that same individual that has $1 million is probably getting on a per year basis, and I should mention the $50,000 I cited was on a per year basis. So now if the interest rate goes down to 1%, now that same individual's getting somewhere close to $10,000, which isn't a whole lot to live on. And that's if they're lucky. If it's down to 0.5%, they're somewhere around $5,000. So you can see that the cost for retirement has actually gone up. And so that's also another value of programmable finance, is that if the yields are actually higher in some of these newfound stores of wealth, stores of value, very much the likes of what we see with housing, in a sense that if you own the asset of a house and you can charge the rental rate that correlates with changes in inflation rate to some limits. But there's a little bit more flexibility there in how you value the money, and you can account for that because it's an asset. You can't do that with US dollars, so that would be the difference. Programmable finance gets you there. It provides an alternative, and it may actually mean that $1 million, once again, yields somewhere above 1%. Now, it may not be 5%, but it may be better than what the bank can offer. So that is an attractive reward that will become an attractive reward for a lot of retirees. But it goes well beyond that, because part of the issue is wealth as a feature to have the ability to succeed. That's something that Dan talked a lot about, the ability to channel your energy, transfer that value from one point to another, so that if there's disagreements or there's issues wherever a person lives, they can take the monetary energy that they've stored and collected due to their work, right, the work they've performed, and move that to another region that is more aligned with their values, and more aligned with their way of living. And the problem is that many people don't know that today, but in fact it's Bitcoin. And when things don't go quite right in a region of the world, it's important for those people to have a way out, so to speak, a chance to seek other opportunities with other swarms of hornets. And those would be the cipher hornets. And as more individuals understand this, importance of sovereignty, I think the value of Bitcoin as a technology is going to rise, and with it, its adoption. And this past 6 months, we finally did see a company, MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, take the plunge to essentially form this, 4-minute mile type scenario with Bitcoin. And what I mean by that 4-minute mile is, back in the day, if you study the runners at that time, and the best, fastest runners in the world, there was some notion that no single human could actually run a mile within 4 minutes. And so, at first, getting there was a challenge, and when that milestone was broken, it was really a game-changing event for humanity, because it pushed the limits and it normalized this idea, and it brought it to reality. And after that, since then, we've seen the limits pushed further and improvements made on running this mile, right, and the timing that's involved in doing that. And now it's no longer a big deal for this to happen. And so how does this relate to Bitcoin and its accumulation? In a sense that before MicroStrategy, it was considered a crazy person to invest in Bitcoin and use it as a store of value, as a treasury reserve asset. And since that time with Bitcoin, we've seen that now it's no longer strange. Bitcoin is seen as a monetary store of value, and many companies are now seriously looking at this as an alternative to US dollars. And so we've only seen the cusp of this, and the likes of these articles that come out from Bloomberg that note that at 32,000, which Bitcoin is around today, that somehow the steam or the flood of money coming into Bitcoin is going to dry up, I think are unfounded, because, and none of this is investment advice, but if you just study the amount of market cap these companies have, the amount of cash they have on their books, and which companies have actually taken the plunge versus which ones haven't, could easily be quantified that 99.5% of these companies haven't actually even started the process on getting Bitcoin to hold even as 1% of their treasury reserve assets, let alone 5%, 10%, 25%. So what do you think is going to happen over the next 6 to 12 months? And what are the OGs doing? Well, it's called front running. And so we're front running those companies so that we can move up in the world with our families and have a way out to secede under this neo-feudalism which is forming, in which the government is now promising to print tons of money and give it to every single person to bail out renters who may have not paid for a year. It's really forming the basis of a moral hazard. And so more individuals are starting to understand what is occurring, and I think opting on a way out. And what's also interesting is, I think people discount the speed of which this information translates throughout the world. And I think that's because in the old days we saw that information and adoption of technologies took maybe a couple years to occur. Even the social network like Facebook recently only, took a few years to gain network effects. But because we're so much more digital, and especially the younger populations are much more connected in this world, and information travels nearly at the speed of light, the information absorption and that network of communication, I think, is going to speed up this network effect within companies and individuals to seriously consider these alternatives. And you could see that occur much faster than what I think people are envisioning this to occur. I don't think it's going to be like a 5 to 10 year horizon. I think it's within a 5-year process. And now also, many people are realizing that there's a war actually on money. There's on money in which any necessities you have or any luxuries you have, you're seeing those types of assets price increase 15 to 20% year over year, which means if you're not making at least 15 to 20% on your money every year, you're sitting on a melting ice cube of worthless fiat. And so people are starting to realize that this is an unfair playing field. And that brings me to my next point for today to think about with Profi, in that, beyond this need to beat this melting ice cube of 15 to 20%, as young entrepreneurs, as professionals, there's also a perceived and acknowledged, really, unfair playing field with the framework to form companies and businesses. And I think this is the other aspect of programmable finance that many, even within EOS, don't talk about, because if you look at the starting up of a company, the types of legal, state, federal complexities with doing that, the accounting fees involved, the filing fees involved, the banking relationships that you must have to maybe even start some of these ventures, the ability for you, for example, to provide asset equity with partners of yours or to form structures like that. That barrier is so high to form those costs. In fact, just yesterday I was talking about an idea with some colleagues, some friends of mine, and the fact came out of acknowledging the cost for starting businesses like this, and it just becomes more cost and risk than it's worth doing, so it stifles innovation. But imagine, for example, if there was a way in which the financial software that you use, perhaps Profi, includes the provisions you need. So it includes the legal framework, it includes the accounting framework, it includes all the filing. So that essentially is almost like LegalZoom for those that have seen something like LegalZoom. LegalZoom's like a platform for filing legal documents in a cheap way. And that is something that kind of shifted the legal world. I'm not saying it's always done and it can't be done for everything, but it was a game changer for a lot of people, because for the first time they were able to gain some legal assistance and advice and file different documents, right, to protect their families or their businesses. But that only covers the legal framework. So Profi, from my perspective, if you think about a company like LegalZoom, it combines, those types of features with the blockchain along with finance, which is something we haven't seen. So kind of the intermeshing of all those systems. This goes well beyond Bitcoin, because this is now allowing people to form businesses with equity, which is something that we don't have today. And if you extrapolate that further, imagine you're a Bitcoin holder and you have an idea for a business and you want to get loans in a fashion that is much more transparent, much more fair, much more audited based on your collateral and maybe your credit score, not based on your race or maybe the area that you live in, or other things that banks have been known to do. Well, you could use your Bitcoin and use that as collateral, and potentially you could then get enough backing to start your business, but also you could start to distribute equity to your partners, right, to people in your community, and they would have an incentive to use your business. That is a game changer. And if that, for example, involves some element as a product of EOS from a valuation perspective would probably be worth just as much, if not more, than the current valuation from a market cap perspective as Ethereum, because Ethereum is more of a niche product. You know, it does have DeFi on there, but this type of a solution has an interest for many more people beyond crypto. And so that is that would really be a game changer. That's what's the risk reward I talked about in the last video would be. Again, not investment advice, but I don't see a lot of other people talking about this. So, you know, your boy Phoenix, being an OG in the space, is gonna do some hypothetical videos here and just get you thinking about what is potentially possible. These are the things that we've heard Brandon Bloomer talking about, but we actually haven't seen the realization of this. And so one has to wonder if we will see this sometime this year. And you know, part of the frustration I think with EOS has been B1's emphasis more on enterprise projects, but I think something like Profi would have to involve some element of the public chain just to get that trust. Because whenever you have private chains doing things, there's always a risk of either getting hacked or some manipulation of some kind, or yeah, basically those types of things. And so that's probably alienated a lot of the EOS users, and it's impacted the numbers of what I would call keepers of the flame within the network. But I think with a product like this, you could, you know, see a resurgence of that. Now, obviously, there's a lot of concerns with clones of products, and so I think a lot of the community has halted their development on a lot of services and solutions built on EOS because they don't know what B1's building. So if anybody from B1's watching this video, I think the best thing that could be done is really a product roadmap. Doesn't have to have all the details, but just be a little bit more transparent and work with the community so you're not alienating them and you're not destroying what's been built, because there's already a lot of damage done, and it really risks you know, further erosion of what's left. And that's just from my perspective. So, you know, I'd love to know what you guys think about that. It does seem like if there's anybody who could do it, it would be a B1, and it would need to involve something like EOS. But in my mind, you know, the first video I mentioned with the Bitcoin is probably something more of a stage 1 for that, with custodianship and lending, basic lending. But, you know, maybe that second level, guys, involves aspects that we just talked about, where you're looking more at business venture formations, which would be really exciting, not just for the price of EOS, but it would be exciting for the likes of myself and others who are probably in EOS as more entrepreneurship minded to take advantage of such a platform and see what could be built. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. Do you think this is something we'll see this year? Do you think it's hopium? Do you think Phoenix is smoking something? I'd love to know your thoughts on this. And thanks so much for watching my video. If you like the content, hit the like button, consider subscribing. Otherwise, this is Phoenix signing off. Peace.